Are you truly honest with yourself? In this video, I'm going to share with you my 3 simple steps on how to become more honest with yourself starting today. Now, before we get into my step-by-step guide to self-honesty, let's talk about the 3 possible reasons for not being honest with yourself right now. The first possible reason is you want to protect your self-image. You might be lying to yourself because you want to save face, and sometimes the truth might influence your perception of yourself. So what exactly is going on here and why does it happen? There is a concept in psychology that describes this phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. The term cognitive dissonance was coined by American social psychologist Leon Festinger in 1957, and it relates to the discomfort a person feels when their behavior does not align with their values or beliefs. According to Festinger, human beings strive for internal psychological consistency to function mentally in the real world. When you're lying to yourself to protect your self-image, you might be trying to mask certain behaviors because they don't quite fit the persona you present to the world. Now let me give you an example. If you view yourself as a healthy person, but you keep binging junk food, drinking alcohol, or doing other things that don't align with your values, you might start experiencing cognitive dissonance because the person you think you are doesn't align with your current behavior. Here are some common signs of cognitive dissonance. You might feel stressed out, overwhelmed, or uneasy before making a decision, or you might feel guilty, embarrassed, or completely in denial when it comes to the decisions you made in the past. You might try to justify, rationalize, or use other defense mechanisms to cope with the uncomfortable feelings you feel at the time. I'm working on releasing an entire series on defense mechanisms, so make sure to subscribe if you want to get notified when it goes live. Now back to cognitive dissonance. When you want to protect your self-image, you might be prone to self-deception because the truth could be too painful to bear. It could also be related to not admitting to certain behaviors you're not necessarily proud of and wanting to keep them hidden not only from yourself, but also from others. Which actually brings me to the next reason for not being honest with yourself, which is fear of rejection. Fear of rejection is an interesting one. It's all about being afraid of not being liked, being abandoned, or socially excluded. When you feel emotionally rejected, your instinctive behavior might be to move away from the situation that's causing you pain, just as if you were under a physical attack. If you have experienced a severe case of feeling rejected in the past, for example, emotional withdrawal from your parents growing up, being bullied at school, or something similar, you've most probably built up a wall around your vulnerable self so that it can protect you from similar pain in the future. The truth is that might work for a while, but when you systematically fear rejection, you often withdraw from social interactions, career opportunities, or other wonderful things that are out there for you to experience. You might not be honest with yourself, because if you stop lying to yourself, that means that you have to face your uncomfortable feelings, and one of them is fear of rejection. It's easier to say, they don't deserve me, or I'm better off this way. But it takes a lot of courage to take responsibility for your choices and see what's truly going on inside. When you keep certain things hidden from yourself, you're trying to protect yourself from getting hurt. It's way easier not to have to admit to yourself that you've made a mistake or that you haven't been a good partner. The thing is that when you point your finger at the other person, you're giving your power away. Instead of being honest with yourself, you're masking your uncomfortable feelings and blaming forces that are outside of your control. Fear of rejection can be a powerful motivator to stay stuck in your own world, where you can deceive yourself as much as you want. But the only way to truly connect with other human beings is to learn to be vulnerable. Sometimes having fear of rejection might be a sign of anthropophobia, which is fear of people in general. So if you think that is the case for you, I recommend watching episode 188 after this one. I will leave a link below. The third most common reason for not being honest with yourself is you don't know your shadow self. What is your shadow self? According to Carl Jung, the shadow self is an archetype that forms part of the unconscious mind and is composed of repressed ideas, instincts, impulses, weaknesses, desires, and fears. In other words, your shadow self is that dark part of yourself that you don't really want to admit exists and you don't want to associate yourself with. So you might be wondering, how is not being honest with myself related to not being aware of my shadow self? So let's say you want to have a healthy romantic relationship with someone, but you keep choosing the wrong partners. You might not be entirely honest with yourself by thinking that they're the problem, manipulating, lying to you, playing hot and cold, but the common denominator is actually you. So the better question you can ask yourself is, why am I attracted to this type of man? One of the most helpful ways to become aware of your shadow self is to journal. Journaling can help you get to know yourself better without filtering things out or judging yourself. I've created a free shadow work journaling worksheet that you can download by clicking the first link right below this video or visiting coachsimona.com/shadow. Now that you know the most common reasons for not being honest with yourself, let's get into my 3-step formula on how to stop self-deceit. My first tip is to ask yourself what am I getting out of this? When you're not being honest with yourself, there's usually something that you're getting out of it. For example, if you engage in self-deception, you might be trying to avoid facing what's truly going on. Not having to face difficult or challenging emotions could be beneficial for you in the short run. But the truth is that the more you try to escape your emotions, the heavier and more difficult to ignore they're gonna get. By asking yourself the question, what am I getting out of this? You'll slowly but surely start the process of becoming more aware of your true motives and desires. The truth is that if you've been dishonest with yourself for many years, that means you've definitely gotten used to lying to yourself, and it will take some time to reframe this behavior. You might even try to lie to yourself when you're answering this question. That's why you need to be patient with yourself and give yourself some time to get used to being honest and transparent. One of the most common roles we fall into is the role of the victim. If you're not being honest with the way you choose to perceive the current situation and the way you act as a result of that, you can stay stuck in the victim mentality, which is really not helping you grow and move on. So if playing the victim is your default mode of lying to yourself, you can adapt this question to sound something like, what am I getting out of playing the victim in my life? It could be anything, ranging from I get sympathy from others to I don't have to take responsibility for my choices. The important thing is to realize that no matter what you're getting out of being dishonest with yourself, there is no need to judge yourself because it's unproductive and pointless. Which actually leads me to my second tip on how to be honest with yourself, which is to stop criticizing yourself. When you're being honest with someone else, you introduce the possibility to be rejected, disliked, embarrassed, or misunderstood. And that's completely normal. We're all trying our best in social interactions, but we always act out of the state of consciousness that we're currently in. Meaning, the way people react to your dishonest or honest behavior is something that you can't predict, and frankly, they can't predict either, since they will always act in accordance with their current state of consciousness at that very moment. But what does this have to do with not criticizing yourself? Well, there is no way of completely avoiding getting criticized by others. It's entirely up to you whether or not you're going to be critical of yourself when you're being honest. You often hear me talk about your inner critic, which is the internalized voice of a parent, teacher, or primary caretaker who criticized you growing up. It's not you. Now, here's how the inner critic might be currently sabotaging your efforts to be honest with yourself. Let's say you're trying to get to the bottom of why you sabotage your relationships. But every time you try being honest with yourself, you start hearing this mean inner voice that says, you're not good enough. You don't deserve to be happy. No one's gonna love you for who you really are. I want you to detach yourself from these thoughts and question their validity. Who told you that you're not a good person? What makes a person deserving of happiness? How can someone love you for you if you don't really give them a chance? Instead of beating yourself up, I want you to become familiar of this negative inner monologue and take everything it says with a grain of salt. You can even give it a name if you want to feel more detached from it. When you stop criticizing yourself, every time you try to be vulnerable and honest with yourself, it will become easier to keep it real, and you will stop hiding things from yourself that you're embarrassed or guilty about. My next tip on how to be honest with yourself is to accept yourself unapologetically. Since this is the toughest one, I want you to start small. What does accepting yourself unapologetically actually mean? It's about knowing your strengths and weaknesses, being honest with yourself about the things that make you human, and having the guts to be who you really are, no matter what anyone thinks of you. So what is the first small step you can take when it comes to accepting yourself unapologetically? Learn how to be compassionate with yourself. Developing self-compassion doesn't happen overnight. It's all about making better choices for yourself, putting yourself first, acknowledging what you need, and taking good care of yourself. In my practice so far, I found out that lack of self-compassion is directly linked to not being unapologetically yourself. When you're not compassionate with yourself, you're showing yourself that you can be trusted. And that is a huge problem in the long run. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, how can you show up as your most authentic self when you communicate with others? So my tip here when it comes to developing self-compassion is to allow yourself to be vulnerable. For example, next time you feel like crying, don't try to escape it by binge-watching Netflix or eating junk food. Or next time you're too hard on yourself because you failed at work, I want you to be kind and gentle with yourself. Choose kindness over criticism and humility over pride. By accepting yourself unapologetically, you show yourself that you can be trusted and give yourself the chance to open up to other people. The best part is that the right people won't reject you. They will even love you more because now they will be able to truly see you, not the version of you that you think they might like. That's why I created the Self-Love Toolkit. I want to help you learn how to be honest with yourself and learn to love yourself unconditionally. If you want to learn more, head over to www.theselflovetoolkit.com. Now, if you're not being honest with yourself, that often has something to do with not knowing your shadow self. So if you want to learn more, make sure to watch this video next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in that video.